What is up, everybody? Back with another top 10 here today, and I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Pete Pardo from Sea of Tranquility. Pete, thanks a lot for coming on here, man. How's it going?
What's up, Bryce? How you doing? Hello, everybody out there. Good to see everybody once again. Looking forward to this little ranking show we're doing here. This should be fun.
Yeah, for sure. As y'all can see, we are going to be talking about our 10 favorite hard rock vocalists of all time. A lot of awesome guys to choose from. And for me, it's kind of tough to draw the line sometimes where hard rock and metal crosses over. I know some of these guys can be considered both, but generally they're all hard rock. So we're just going to kick it off with Pete's number 10 and go back and forth.
Cool. Yeah, this is tough because whenever I do these on SOT all the time. I put together like a master list, and then I'm like, all right, so if I want 10, I got 20. Now I got to whittle it down. And I love all these singers. And if you were asked me, if we were to do the show again next week, I might even have a couple different guys or gals in my list. So I'll have a couple of honorable mentions at the end. And yeah, you're absolutely right. But there's a couple of them here that have done both hard rock and metal. I still think of these singers as more of hard rock. But my number 10, may he rest in peace, Mr. Brad Delp from Boston. Phenomenal singer. I think the only thing with Brad is I wish we had more from him. It's like you look back on the history of Boston, right? They don't have a lot of albums, and he only sang on a few of them. And away from Boston, he didn't do a lot of stuff. And I think this is the guy that could have been, looked at as one of the greatest singers of all time. And this is one of the greatest debuts of all time. And I listened to this; it's absolute perfection, and his voice is just an angel, right? I mean, it's just like there was no one like him, and it really sucks that he's no longer with us, but. It just goes to show you that fame and fortune is not everything for people. And there's a lot of folks who have had great careers and whatever they're doing, but, deep down inside, they're not happy. And it's a sad thing, that's what life is all about, unfortunately. But yeah, Brad Delp, tremendous singer. And I had to squeeze him on this list.
Yeah, he is great. And he's just off my list. I had him at number 12, like when I was putting together that big master list. So that's a really, really great choice. My number 10 is going to be a guy from Kiss. I know they've got a lot of singers. I'm going to go with Paul Stanley. He's always been my favorite singer in Kiss, when he could sing. Of course, nowadays he's not too great, but a lot of that classic stuff. I've actually got a freaking 8-track right here, rock and roll over. I'm a big fan of the 80s material. I know you're not too crazy about a lot of it, but looking at some of the stuff I've got here, this is actually my favorite Kiss album, Asylum. So I like a lot of the stuff he sings on this album. King of the Mountain's great. He's got a really nice, smooth melodic voice, kind of higher pitched at times. My favorite 70s Kiss album, he sings on probably my two favorite 70s Kiss songs, which are I Stole Your Love and Love Gun. Just love his vocal melodies, and just overall I think he's got a really good sounding voice. So that is my number 10.
Yeah, he was a force to be reckoned with back in the day. Yeah, he's lost a step quite a bit. I mean, there's probably a lot of guys we're going to talk about today who have lost a step. But he had such a sweet voice back in the day. And you know what? I always dug Gene Simmons's vocals back then. Because he not that Gene was a great singer by any means, but he was so unique sounding. And the songs that Gene sang had this menace to them, this dark quality. And I always really liked that a lot. But yeah, great singer, not really. Paul was the better singer, but I like
talking about Gene real quick. I think Naked City, that might be one of his best vocal moments for Gene.
And that's quite good.
Yeah. That's my favorite there. But
he's Almost Human is a great. I in the early stuff. I love his vocals on the early, those first 5 albums. So really good. So my number 9 actually was not on my original list, and then I was like, crap, how could I forget the wonderful Ann Wilson? And I'm like, she's one of my favorite singers of all time, male or female or anything, doesn't really matter, hard rock, metal. I mean, she's just terrific, and she still brings it to this day. And I'm like, you know what, she has got to be on this list. And maybe some of my favorite Heart songs are on this. Every time I hear Crazy on You, I still get goosebumps because she's just so awesome. And I mean, the both of them are so awesome. I love them to death. So yeah, my number 9, Ann Wilson.
Yeah, with Ann, she is really good. Just barely missed my cut too. My honorable mentions for sure. That version that she did of Stairway to Heaven when they sung it in front of Robert Plant, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
One of the times I've seen Heart live many times, and I got to see them twice actually. But the first time I saw them play in an outdoor event was at Bethel Woods here in New York, which is the old original Woodstock site, right? That's real close to where I live. Oh. And they had headlined, but halfway through their set, the sun is going down, and they played Love Reign Over Me by the Who. It was just amazing, and she was so good. And they had like the thunder and lightning playing in the background. It was just amazing. Such a really cool moment. And I was just like,
yeah.
And that was not that long ago. Maybe like 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it was a little longer ago than that. But I was like, listening to her, watching her, and I was like, man, she is like in her 60s, and listen to that. She can still sing just as good as she could back in the day. And there's a couple on this list that I'm going to mention that as well, because like we said before, there are some of these singers that are kind of
didn't age too good. Some aged really well.
Yeah. Exactly, and I have a couple of them on my list, so we'll get to them eventually. So all right, back to you, I guess.
Cool. So my number 9 is a guy that's somewhat underrated. I mean, this band had like 8 gold albums back in the day, and that's Foghat, Lonesome Dave Peverett. Really love his voice, and the song Night Shift, title track on this album, I think just got really great vocal melodies, and probably my favorite moment from him, or one of. But of course, this is one of my favorite albums with him. Fool for the City is really great as well. And this is actually the first album my dad bought like back in 1975, so that's kind of interesting. And like all my stuff, he hasn't handed anything down to me, so I've like rebought and everything. But I brought it home one day. He's like, "Wow, that's the first album I bought." So, but yeah, so. That, and also this is one of my favorite live albums from the 70s. Yeah. Just Dave got a really nice, smooth voice, so he is on my list here at number 9.
That's a good choice. Wow, and he is really underrated, I think.
For sure.
Really good voice, really solid singer, and that's just a great band.
Him mixed with that nice slide guitar from Rod Price, and just Foghat's a great band. I've got like 7 of their albums on freaking vinyl, which I didn't realize until I was looking through my stuff. I was like, wow. So
pretty cool. Yeah, and I would say kind of along those lines, here's a guy that I love, and I think he's very underrated as a vocalist. He's just a great front man. He's also a pretty damn good guitar player, I think. Mark Farner from Grand Funk Railroad. I picked the Closer to Home album. I couldn't figure out which album to grab here. Which CD, I should say. But I would say, this has got Sin's a Good Man's Brother, I'm Your Captain, Mean Mistreater, Aimless Lady, Get It Together, just some really good songs. I think he's just a really underrated singer, and this might have some of his best vocal performances. But the We're an American Band is also a really good album that showcases him. The second album, Grand Funk, E Pluribus Funk, is also really good. I mean, he's just a great singer, and he was mainly the sole lead vocalist early on. Until Don Brewer, the drummer, started to sing some songs. They would do almost equally later on, but early on it was all Mark. Really great soulful voice, really soulful voice.
Cool, good pick. So my number 8 is going to be Robert Plant. I mean, just love his voice, very powerful. Got the first Zeppelin album right here. I think he really stands out on like Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. It's kind of just like a little bit of an isolated guitar. It's like the guitar with his vocals going over top of it just sounds amazing. Hit some really cool high notes with some stuff. Love Stairway to Heaven. His vocals on that are amazing. It's Robert Plant. So he's here at number 8 for me.
Ironically enough, he was in my original list, and that's who I took out for Ann Wilson. Ironically enough.
Fair enough. Yeah.
They're so tied together. I love Robert Plant. He's in my honorable mentions. This is hard because I think I like the 10 guys I picked just a little bit more. It's tough.
It's tough. It is really tough.
My number 7 is going to be, and again, he's not the sole lead singer in this band. This band has actually 3 lead singers, whether the classic period or the current period. And I'm talking about Tommy Shaw from Styx, and I picked the Pieces of 8 album. I almost picked Grand Illusion, but he's got a few more vocals on this album. But I love Tommy, and Tommy is another one of those guys that sounds just as good today as he did back then. Such a sweet, soulful voice, but he loved to write really good hard rock tunes. Great guitar player also, and a great songwriter. I love Tommy's vocals, and I'm just amazed at how, because Tommy's got to be 65, 66, 67 years old. Sounds as good as ever. So Tommy Shaw is my choice for number 7.
Very cool. I love Tommy. You might be hearing about that in a little bit from me, but my number 7 is going to be Derek St. Holmes. I'm a huge Ted Nugent fan, and on that first album, the whole band around Ted was an outstanding freaking supporting cast. Of course, Ted's the main guy, but Derek's voice is so melodic and powerful and awesome. Stranglehold, I'd say it's the greatest rock song of all time. I've said that, like, all around, everything on it's awesome. Ted's guitar riffs, solo, Derek's voice, the drumming from Cliff Davies, Rob Grange is awesome on the bass. But yeah, I love Derek's voice. He was in and out of the band freaking like a million times. So That first album's awesome. He came back for this one after he was out for a few years. Not the best ever, but I love the song Tail Gunner to end the album, and he sings that one. So, yeah, Derek, awesome singer, pretty underrated. Of course, Ted was like the main guy in the spotlight, but Derek's fantastic. So he's here at number 7 for me.
Here's my question for you today. If we were to go back in time, it's a little what if type of scenario. What if Ted could have checked his ego a little bit and said, you know what, I'm going to have Derek be the main singer in this band, and that's the way it's going to be, and I'm going to be the guitar hero. Do you think that Ted Nugent and that band could have been way bigger for much longer than they were?
I think it would have lasted longer for sure, because it's interesting the way I look back, because like some of those albums in the mid-70s with Ted were like double, triple platinum, and you like look at Kiss's sales compared, like a lot of the like Love Gun's like single platinum, Catch Rush Fever's triple platinum. It's like, why didn't Ted's success and like why doesn't he still play arenas now? It's like, I don't know, but
I think that he could have been on top of the world with that band with Derek as the lead singer. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't dislike Ted's vocals.
I think he's got a capable voice, but it does. Yeah, I think Derek's better.
For me, it's like, man, Derek, he's a singer, man. He's just a cool frontman guy, and I don't see any reason why the two of them couldn't have been there doing their thing, and just Ted letting him be the singer in that band. I always got this impression that Ted was a little put off by Derek wanting to be, the frontman. It's like, you're Ted Nugent, right? You are an amazing guitar player. You're always going to be that guitar hero. Let him do his thing. You do your thing, and this would be a enormous band. And I just think the reason why Nugent kind of slipped a little after, like, at the end of the 70s is because Derek was no longer there as a front man. You had that voice, right? And the material just seemed to kind of take a little bit of a dive after that. I don't know. I just think that would have been the band to just take over the world, and it just didn't really happen.
It's a cool hypothetical thing to think about there if it had happened, but
I love Derek, and I love all the little side projects and things that he's done. Whitford St. Holmes is great, and a lot of really cool bands he's been in. All right, so where are we? Number 6, right?
Yep.
Well, of course, I kind of gave it away a little bit here by wearing the shirt, but I figure Freddie Mercury gotta be here. I think Freddie was one of the greatest frontmen of all time, an amazing voice, whether he's singing the really heavy early stuff or the more poppy stuff that they did later on. He could do it all, and a really unique voice. I mean, that kind of like operatic thing. I mean, nobody else sounded like Freddie. And he just absolutely had to be on this list. And it was hard for me to pick an album too. I wanted to go like Queen 1 or Queen 2 or Sheer Heart Attack. I decided to go with this one because this might be his greatest vocal performance ever. And that just kind of reminded me that I have to add someone to my honorable mentions who Freddie was really influenced by. So while you're doing that, I will add that to my list.
Cool. Yeah, I like him. I'm not the biggest Queen fan, so they didn't quite make my list, but I do recognize he's like one of the best voices of all time and stuff. So good pick. So my number 6 is going to be Ian Gillan. Of course, this is a guy who borders hard rock and metal. Of course, he was on the Sabbath album right there behind me, Born Again. That's metal, but a lot of that 70s Deep Purple stuff, I think, could be labeled as hard rock today. Very influential to metal, but this guy's screams were incredible back in the day. All I got to say is Child in Time. I could be just done talking. Amazing on that song. Of course, the Machine Head album is probably my favorite with him on it. Just top to bottom, is super consistent, amazing stuff. His voice, amazing as usual. So that is my number 6, Ian Gillan.
Well, Bryce, I'm sure you know me well enough to know that we're going to be talking about him again in a little bit, right?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, great choice. So where are we at? Number 5. All right, so had to put Mr. Steve Marriott on this list. The question is, which Humble Pie album was I going to choose? So I chose Smokin'. This is the first album with Clem Clemson on guitar after Peter Frampton left. And this here, it's all Steve Marriott on the vocals. Man, it doesn't get much better when you come down to a guy who could sing with a lot of soul in a like kind of bluesy hard rock format. And I think that Steve Marriott, another one of the greatest frontmen ever, mean guitar player, killer singer. I sometimes think that he is slightly underrated because, you go and walk up to like 10 people on the street. They're going to be like, Steve who? I don't know who that is, right? And he was one of the greats, man, one of the greats, and another guy who just left us way too soon and had a just really sad end to his life. I just hate to see these really uber talented musicians just kind of go out that way. But anyway, yeah, Steve Marriott, one of the all-time greats, number 5 for me, could have even been higher, but the guys above him are like really, you know, as is he. But my top guys are like,
yeah. Awesome. So as you mentioned earlier, I'm going to also go with Tommy Shaw. Here's the first album he was on with Styx. Love the song Shoes. It's one of the more harder rocking songs. Very bluesy, just awesome riff. His voice, the vocal melodies on that are fantastic. I'm a huge Ted fan. I love everything he's done, and the Damn Yankees material too.
Hell yeah.
With Tommy, I love these albums. This is my favorite supergroup, just all around. Michael Cardelloni, Jack Blades, which I actually got Jack Blades to sign this when I saw Night Ranger.
Ah, cool.
Kind of see it right there.
Yep,
But Tommy's voice, one of the standout tracks, it's kind of underrated. I think is one of his best moments is Silence is Broken on this album right here. Just his voice, as you said, it's like angelic and amazing. So he's on my list for sure. Tommy, number 5.
Yeah, I almost picked the Crystal Ball album because of the title track. That's one of my favorite vocals from him ever. Mm-hmm. This is so good. That's such a great album. Cool. All right, it's cool. We both had Tommy. Awesome. All right. Well, my number 4, he had to be on here, and this was equally tough trying to pick my favorite Paul Rodgers vocal performance. I mean, I had like 3 free albums in my hand, a couple Bad Companies. Ultimately, I decided to go with Straight Shooter. I mean, and here's another example of a guy. I saw Bad Company a few years back, and I mean, this guy's like 70 years old, and he looks phenomenal, and he sounds just as good as he did back then. I mean, there's something to be said about keeping your body in shape and keeping your mind sharp. And man, he just brings it. And he's just one of the classiest singers, whether he's doing like hard rock or blues, whether he's, you know, doing like a pop crooning type of song, doesn't really matter. He's just amazing. You know, Good Lovin' Gone Bad, Feel Like Making Love, Shooting Star, Deal with the Preacher, Wildfire Woman, amazing songs here. Love him. He's just, he's a legend for a reason. So he's my number 4.
Awesome. Yeah, he is great for sure. My number 4 is going to be the guy from my shirt here, Jack Russell.
Aha.
I've always loved Gray White. I love Jack's voice. I did see the band Gray White a couple years ago, and Jack wasn't there, so I was just like, it wasn't anywhere close to as good as I would have liked if Jack was with the band. But some of my favorite moments from him, of course, are on this album. Once Bitten, really, really cool stuff here. Looking at this, Save Your Love, I think, even though it's a ballad, his voice just sounds amazing and super powerful on that. Rock Me is another great one. I do like their very first album the best, the self-titled one. It's more of like I'd say that's more of like a metal album, but as time went along, they evolved into like more of a bluesy hard rock thing. Just, love Jack's voice. Got hooked right here as well on CD from 91. But love Jack, so he's here at my number 4.
Cool. Well, my top 3 are all somewhat linked together. I'm sure folks watching and are familiar with me doing these type of things. Neither of these 3 will come as a surprise. So my number 3 is another one of those guys, and he is, how old is he now? I think he's 69, and he is an absolute freak of nature. He sounds so good, and this is a guy who went through a lot of crap. He battled his demons for, a decade and a half, and he's been sober for 30 years, and he sounds amazing, and he puts a lot of singers that are half his age to shame. I'm talking about Mr. Glenn Hughes himself, the voice of rock. I picked Medusa, the great album from Trapeze. I almost picked Black Sabbath 7 Star because I love his vocals on that. I had a couple Black Country Communion CDs. I had Resonate, his last solo album. I mean, God, any album is a great album with Glenn Hughes on vocals. Man, the new Dead Daisies, he sounds spectacular on. So, yeah, he's my number 3 guy. He's just, and probably out of, him and Paul Rodgers, Tommy Shaw, I mean, these guys still sound amazing today. And Wilson, too. And you got to give them credit. I mean, who would ever think that at that age, that they're all that they could still bring the goods like they do, and that's just awesome to me. That's a pretty amazing achievement. So yeah, Glenn Hughes.
Awesome, yeah, really good pick. I love that 7 Star album with Black Sabbath he was on. Great stuff. But honestly, right now I'm like not even sure who I want to put 3 and 2. It's really tough putting these lists together, but at the moment I'm gonna go with David Coverdale at number 3. Love David. Of course, the Deep Purple stuff he was on, those 3 albums are really good. I love Whitesnake. One of my favorite albums of all time is this 87 Whitesnake album. I know you could call it glam metal and stuff, whatever. It's got like the big, amazing guitar tone from John Sykes, but I think just his voice sounds awesome on here. Still the Night was always one of my absolute favorite songs of all time. A couple other favorites on here. Children of the Night, it's the opening riff. His voice sounds awesome on that song too. Just I've also got, I don't even know why I get cassette tapes. I just see them like in the store, like for like $1. I'm like, I'm just gonna get that, whatever. But yeah, David is awesome. So he's here at my number 3.
So what, we're 20 minutes in, we had a John Sykes reference. All right, pretty
cool. Yeah, Butch is going to be happy if he sees
keeping the tradition alive, right? There we go. Well, I mean, Bryce, you know me. You know what my number 2 is, right? So it's David Coverdale. I absolutely love David Coverdale. He's one of my favorite rock stars of all time. And he's the coolest to me. I mean, he's just, I can't even explain. You know, the way Butch talks about John Sykes is the way I talk about David Coverdale. I love him to death. And yeah, I get that he's not quite the singer he used to be, but I don't care, man. He's still the man. He sounds great on the new albums. I Burn, Slide It In. This album is one of my favorite albums of all time. I just absolutely love this album to death. And, all the bluesy Whitesnake albums, all the latter period Whitesnake albums, Coverdale Page, I don't care. Love him. He's my number 2. He's been my number 2 favorite singer for, well, you know what? If you throw the metal guys in there, if you throw Ronnie James Dio into the equation, Coverdale's number 3 because Ronnie's my number 2. But if you just purely talking hard rock, David's the guy. Yeah,
and that Whitesnake, the self-titled album, I did a top 50 glam metal albums list. I included it on there, ranked at number 3. So it's one of my favorite albums of all time as well. But my number 2 is going to be a guy who I think is kind of underrated. This band has 2 main singers. Gilmore is the guy I don't like as much, but my favorite singer in the band is Rick Emmett. Love his voice. I think he's a fantastic musician. When he does all the guitars and the vocals when he sings, like that's amazing. But looking at this album, Magic Power, his voice just sounds so amazing. It's smooth, angelic. You say all those adjectives about him there. Street Fighter from the first album is one of my absolute favorite songs by them too. Good hard rocker with him on vocals. Also got this right here, Lay It on the Line, another favorite. But I've always loved Rick, and I would really love to see Triumph at some point. I've never seen him live, but that's my number 2.
That's a great outside the box choice. I didn't even think of him, and I love him too. Yeah. So I will say, Bryce, not to make you feel bad, but I got to see Triumph with Saxon in like early 1982 at the Palladium in New York City, and it was amazing. I mean, it was Saxon were fairly new playing here in the States. And it was on the Allied Forces tour, and it was just amazing. And they had all the lights, the lasers, and all that kind of stuff. And then the next couple times I had seen them were on big hockey arenas, like 15,000 people. And at that point, Triumph was really big business here. But yeah, really good live band. Really good live band.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I love him. Well, my number 1, no surprise to anybody, I'm sure, Mr. Ian Gillan. This is my favorite Deep Purple album, one of my favorite albums of all time, and probably my favorite vocal performance from Ian. But man, I could have picked Born Again. I absolutely love Born Again. Mr. Universe by the Gillan Band. And any number of Purple albums. I mean, I love him. He was the shrieker back in the day, really original voice. Now he's got that more kind of like grandfatherly thing going on, which I don't mind at all. He still sounds good. I think the only time that for me, that's kind of rough is when you go see Deep Purple live now, and to hear Ian try to sing those older Purple classics, he struggles, right? But the new stuff, because they record stuff that's perfectly suitable for the way he sings now. But because he's 72 years old or whatever he is, you wouldn't have guessed. Child in Time, he's not going there anymore. But
I was gonna say, does he even like attempt that, or is he just kind of like the screams?
I don't think they've attempted Child in Time since the mid 90s. Because I saw them at the Beacon Theater in New York City, like in 95 or 96 with like Thin Lizzy opening up. That was the John Sykes version of Thin Lizzy. And that was the last time I ever saw them play Child in Time. And I was like, oof, I think they need to cut this out of the set. Because as much as I love it, it's one of my favorite songs of all time. Ian's not there anymore, which is kind of a shame. But man, I saw the Born Again tour. And he was just up there with Sabbath, just, his hair was all on his face. You couldn't even see his face. He's just up there screaming up a storm. And I was like, oh, this is like the best thing ever. His
voice sounds so like evil and haunting on that song, Disturbing the Priest.
Oh, my
so
God.
good. Oh, yeah.
I'm a huge Born Again fan. That's like, for me, that was, if you can imagine, that came out in what, 83, right? Or something.
83. Yeah.
So I'm like a 17, 18-year-old kid, and my two favorite bands are Black Sabbath and Deep Purple. And that is like and as heartbroken as I was that Ronnie and Vinny left Black Sabbath, then all of a sudden Ian's in the band. I'm like, this could be the greatest thing ever for me, because it's like the best of both worlds. And then you blinked and he's gone, and then Purple's back together. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm okay with this. It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he is awesome. My number one, I've said it before in videos, and like I said it even on my stream. So anybody that saw that is going to know what my number one is. It's not the most popular pick, but Mr. Lenny Wolf from Kingdom Come. I've always I love his voice. Kingdom Come.
Great singer.
Behind Ted Nugent's solo band and Van Halen, like the early 6 original albums, Kingdom Come is my favorite hard rock band. I also love his stuff on this band, Stone Fury. I don't know if you've heard. This was his band before Kingdom Come.
I remember that, yeah.
Oh, yeah. His voice on the song Break Down the Wall is amazing. Like, there's a music video for it that's really cool on YouTube that people can check out. Just the vocal melody, super powerful voice. I've also got In Your Face, which is a really cool album as well. Do You Like It? A lot of the stuff up through even to like their 2013 album is really good. His voice just awesome, very mesmerizing, and the melodies, powerful stuff. And I know Kingdom comes together right now with like most of the original lineup that was on the first 2 albums besides him, and I really just don't like that. I would never go to see that. Lenny Wolf just, in my opinion, was the band. He's my favorite hard rock singer of all time. So yeah, that was my number one. And any honorable mentions and stuff you want to go through?
Oh, yeah. But before we do, I just want to say I think he's a fine singer as well. And I remember when Kingdom Come first debuted, I dug that first album. And so many people just kind of were like, Kingdom Come, they're trying to be Zeppelin. I'm like, oh, come on, man. It's just great stuff. It's just really good melodic hard rock. And maybe early on they had kind of like this little hint of Zeppelin. But
I think it's because of like the song, maybe, was it Get It On? Sounds like
it was the single. Yeah, it was the single.
Besides that, like they've got like over 10 albums of stuff, like, and a lot of cool, unique, like keyboards and synthesizer stuff mixed in throughout if you go along. Like That Image from 93. It's weird because that came out in 93. It sounds completely like an 80s album. I don't know if you've heard that one, but as time went along, like they were just acted like they were still in the 80s, which I thought was really cool, especially on that album. Yeah. But yeah,
good band. Yeah, I got some honorable mentions. I'll just kind of list them off real quick here. So Lou Gramm from Foreigner, great voice. Steve Perry from Journey. I almost didn't include this next guy because I look at the band as a prog rock band, but Kansas did enough hard rock and stuff. Steve Walsh got to be up there. Phil Mogg from UFO, Dan McCafferty from Nazareth, Robert Plant, of course, Roger Daltrey from The Who, Jimmy Dewar from Robin Trower's band.
Cool.
Big fan of his.
Nice.
And the guy that I completely forgot about that I was reminded of when I was talking about Freddie Mercury is David Byron from Uriah Heep. So those are my honorables.
Cool. So with my honorable mentions, there's a couple of guys on here that again are like right on the edge of hard rock and metal. Guy Speranza from Riot.
Oh, hell
on those first couple, it's like I think Fire Down Under is a great album, and it's like, is it metal? Is it rock? It's like right in the middle, but he's great, amazing singer. Sammy Hagar in particular for his stuff with Montrose and his solo stuff. I don't love the Van Hagar stuff, especially the first 2 albums. I'm not much of a fan of, but I do like FUCK, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. I think Judgment Day is the best Van Hagar song. It's really good hard rock and stuff. Yeah. Brad Delp, as you said, from Boston. Klaus Meine is another guy. Scorpions, right on the edge. I've called them metal a lot in the past on certain lists, but I think it could be classified as either. Dave Manichetti from Y&T, I love.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, I completely forgot about Dave. Yeah, Dave. Yeah, he should be on my list somewhere. Yeah, Dave.
Great singer. I think he's got kind of a similar sounding voice to David Coverdale. Kind of that style. A little bit. Yeah. Just reminds me a little bit of him. As you said, also, Ann Wilson, I think, is awesome. How about like a lot of the singers that Ted got after Derek, I think are really good. Charlie Hunn, I think, is very good and capable. Brian Howe, who later went on to be in Bad Company. He was on the Penetrator album in '84. But also, I don't know if you can remind me, the guy he had on the Little Miss Dangerous album, he went on to be in REO Speedwagon as the lead guitarist. He was, forget his name. Yeah, what his name? He was pretty good on Little Miss Dangerous, but
yeah, I'm drawing a complete blank. I know exactly who you're talking about. What was his name?
Of course, I'll think of it like as soon as we stop here, but that's how it goes. But yeah, this was really cool. I'd love to have you back on, be back on Sea of Tranquility. I'm down to do whatever, But yeah, thanks a lot for coming on, Pete.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. This was fun. I love talking about my favorite singers. I could do this any day of the week. So
For sure, yeah. And everybody, thank y'all for watching. Give us your 10 favorite hard rock singers in the comments, and until next time.